in the back, or? Okay, can I just speak normally? Good? Okay, I'm just going to yell like an animal, so if you guys lose your hearing.
You do have HDMI on your computer.
Oh. Can we just load it up? Is it okay?
Yeah, I'll just wait for you then. I'm still waiting for the email.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Hello. No, I'm just going to talk normally then. Okay, cool. So I'm going to actually just go straight for the intro, because we can wait for the slides to go up. It's fine. Yep, okay. First couple slides are intro anyways, so. Yeah, I'm Norris. I'm an ex-software engineer. I used to lead product and engineering at firms such as Microsoft, HP, Disney, etc. I started off actually in blockchain, because at the time, 2018 era, blockchain was kind of on a high. At that time, 16K for Bitcoin was a lot. They couldn't afford to pay me, so I got paid in Bitcoin. And then I went on to lead product and engineering at other firms. Disney, I did data architecture. So for example, at Disney, in the Orlando resort, how many people are coming in? How much are they spending? What are they doing? Certain metrics like that. Then I did 2 years at the RCMP. Now, I did many things at the RCMP. The first year was modernization. The newest product I worked on was 2007 that I modernized. The oldest was 1982. So we were working in COBOL, ancient architecture, okay? And legacy architecture, if you've ever dealt with it, is very much an art. It was incredible to deal with, very stressful. And so obviously the RCMP, things have to be secure, right? So at that time, you know, let's just say software security was not super mature. Everything was centralized through something called departmental security. And in order to bring them AI, I had to fill out 800 forms. 825 forms I had to fill out. And that took a while, as you can imagine. So there's a lot of bureaucracy in the way. And unfortunately, if you guys read the Verizon data breach report from last week, shadow AI has become the third most popular data exfiltration method that hackers are using nowadays. So that leads to ransomware, for example, when you're copying private data. There was a Samsung employee who got let go because he got found out using shadow AI. In the RCMP, a lot of people were using AI, unfortunately, on their private devices. So the governance involved with that was also pretty intense. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. There's going to be a few stories involved here and there. I'm going to be talking about you know, some of the things that I'm interested in. Also how humanity, like humans, are going to become so much more valuable with AI. It just hasn't come to fruition yet, unfortunately. But we'll get into that. So we're going to be talking for what? How much time have I blown through? OK. 15 minutes, let's say. It's going to be two halves. First is about like, OK, how do we be a human, basically? When AI is happening, how do we become the best in the workforce, basically? And the second part is the actual AI itself. Unfortunately, I couldn't use my laptop, so what to do? I had a demo lined up, but it's OK. I'll just talk about it instead. And if you guys want resources, we can go into that. Because there's a lot of AI tools that people are not using right now. So yes, Claude skills, for example. If you guys are not using that, I would start there, for example. So what is a Claude skill? Claude skill is basically you design a skill, I guess, that your AI can do. So for example, let's say you want to create notes. You want to automate some administrative task. Like let's say you just had a meeting in Fireflies or whatever your meeting recorder is, and you want it in a certain format, you can create a skill for that in Claude and automate it. So you just go into your prompt, say @firefly-note or whatever. So you can call your skill and then go from there. Once again, we're going to go a little bit more into that in the second half, and you can obviously always ask me questions, because what I do now is essentially AI security. And on that front, that's where I'm with the Project Gen AI board. I've been helping with the AI SVS, that's the Artificial Intelligence Secure Verification Standard, which is a part of OWASP, which is the Open Web Application Security Standard project. Don't really know why they put me on the GRC track, but it's OK. So we'll go really quickly into phase one. Humanity. Why do we love humans? Because why not? Right? We're all lovely people here. OK, so stick with me. Huh? So we don't build tooling for this part. Right? In cybersecurity, the most complicated part is actually the human, right? As we all know. So this is the part where any security program, right? Like when I'm rolling out, I rolled out security programs for over 177 detachments in British Columbia alone, right? My programs were used from E Division is British Columbia, but also K Division, which is Alberta, O Division, which is Ontario, and J Division, which is Yukon. Now it's a bit complicated because J Division and E Division were actually merged recently, but I digress. So actually, we already talked about who I am. I'm not important. I guess the only thing I missed was that I used to be an athlete, and I will be coming with one athletic analogy coming up pretty soon. Okay, security. So when I was a developer, so I did engineering for 7 years, a lot of security was basically throwing stuff over the fence, and then I have to deal with it somehow. And that was terrible. Terrible for governance, but also terrible for me, my mental health. I'm a developer. I have tickets. I need to ship code. Features need to be built. I don't want to think about what the security team wants at all. Nobody, as a developer, wanted to deal with the security team, unfortunately. And one thing to really fast-track your career is that if you can get buy-in from developers, you probably will get buy-in from senior leadership. If the developers like you, they'll champion for you. This goes for selling, right? If you have technical products and the developers like it, that could be anything. There's a lot of boots out there, for example, like Jordi AI and all of these, I know Jordi AI deals specifically with governance, but Aikido deals with more on like the SaaS side, for example, static analysis. That's where you want developers. You want your whole team to be working as beautifully as possible. And unfortunately, if you are in governance, in GRC and as a whole, you're more of a salesperson in a way. You need to convince these people to help you in order to be able to do their job better, actually. So the friction wasn't really the security side. It was more so human influence. Why do I need to care about it? I have a great story, actually, at the RCMP. We had CVSS scores of literally 9.9, right? Like the worst you can imagine, basically. Now, CVSS is just severity. It doesn't necessarily dictate the risk. So, for example, a 9.8 could be on an internal application that nobody uses. Is it really important? Not really. But a 6.0 could be really important if it's on an external-facing application. Like, let's say if it's MyCRA, for example, and we're all logging into it. So if you can do a SQL injection, that's pretty intense, right? That would probably be more than a 6.0, but still. So obviously, people deprioritize cybersecurity because of that, if you're not able to communicate it. So we're going to delve more into that. Okay, so I play volleyball a lot. I used to be a varsity athlete. So engineering are your hitters. Setters are considered your brain of the team. So as a setter, I need to be able to place the ball exactly where the hitter is going to be. Okay, that's you in security as a setter. So if you want to get really good at security and getting buy-in, because that's really what you are. You're a salesperson in some ways as well, and cultivating those skills, you need to be able to set up your team for success. You just need to think about it, basically. And volleyball is a team sport. Not a lot of people think about it, but at the end of the day, team collaboration is going to be a big thing, and it's going to become more important going forward how you communicate with the people around you. It's not going to be so much like, hey, I'm getting my tickets done, and then nobody needs to talk to me. It's really not going to fly anymore, in my opinion. Hey. So, why is authenticity important? Okay, who you are and what you bring to the workplace is very important. Why? Because we all have a beautiful, different way of communicating. We are very diverse in the way we approach problems. That's a good thing. Our creativity is what's going to separate us from the majority of the people that are already, whether in cyber or in the tech market in general, because a lot of people are not very good at communicating. So, it was the same with like the Industrial Revolution, right? Suddenly you could automate everything, right? You could create so many goods very quickly. What became more expensive? The human artisans, actually. Creating something handmade became more expensive all of a sudden. So that's what I mean with AI. Yes, a lot of the supply chain bottlenecks are now being removed, which is a fantastic thing in my opinion. But at the same time, if you are capable of bringing your style of communication, your hobbies, everything like that into a workplace, that will make you more and more valuable. So have hobbies is basically what I'm saying. Now we'll get more into the technical side. Just one last thing. When I say hobbies, I don't mean it in like to prove anything to anybody kind of deal. Like let's say you're into cars or you're into drawing or anything like that. That gives you a certain perspective when you're approaching any problem, okay? As a developer, the best developers tech is all about problem solving. At its fundamental core, technology is about problem solving. If you want to get good at it, you need to have your own things going on in your life that give you the perspective to be able to approach a problem. Unfortunately, in engineering, it was, now not so much, which I think is a positive trend. It was more about leak code and memorizing problems. Memorizing these things is not going to be the future, okay? It's who you are and what you bring to the table is what's going to matter. I could talk about how you can cultivate it as well, but let's leave that for Q&A, I guess. Now, the technical reality, I'm not an anti-AI guy. I'm not like super bought into AI either, but we'll get into that, into like where I feel like, because the problem with AI is that it will confidently lie to you. And that's not even a hallucination. That's not even a hallucination, right? Like, for example, if you're using a agentic workflow, let's say you want to log into something and do something, it'll pretend to log in, fail, but it'll still tell you it succeeded, for example. That happens all the time, for example. That's a really common example. So the confidently lying to you, that's where I'm like, I don't know how bought in I am to AI. But we'll talk about some of the technical things that you can do for your agentic workflows to go from there. Unfortunately, I had a demo, but we're not going to get into it this time. So let the robots do the boring stuff. Like I said, a lot of administrative tasks can be automated. Do that. You can literally go into Claude and be like, hey, this is my daily workflow. What can I automate? What are the main things that you're wasting time on? For me, now, unfortunately, I'm in sales, so be careful when you talk to me on. But in general, for me, it would be like, I don't like forecasting. So what are the deals in the pipeline and what can I quickly update? I could get Claude to automate that for me. HubSpot notes. Let's say I want to go back to a deal a year later. What do I need to know about it? Fireflies, we talked about that, the meeting recordings. There's a lot of good information that you need to know. You can have that create tasks for you, for example, right? Whatever your task tracker is, monday.com or whatever, you can use that to your advantage. So all the admin stuff, if you're dragging and dropping stuff in files and folders, you can get AI to do that for you, usually. So that's the real unlock of potential. In our case, I mean, I'm with a company that does a lot of product stuff, so that's why we have like serif files and ASDS and scanner output. That is not important in the grand scheme of things. What is important is let's say, for example, you get JSON, or you get some sort of file or output, whatever it could be. I don't know what your guys' specific fields are is the thing. If it's GRC, what are your programs? What are you basing your programs on? What type of categorizations are you using? What can you automate? Think about that. For me, AI came up with over 370 things that I could automate easily. Within 10 minutes, I could build it for each thing. Now, obviously, 10 things across 370 things is a lot of time, but think about the amount of time I'm saving at the end of the day. So let AI do the heavy lifting, but do not let it think for you, that's for sure. Development, I think this is really important because once again, technology does rely a lot on development. Most of the companies that we work for, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's whatever, they're all tech shops. All of them develop software. It's important to know who the developers are. Oh my God, that thing is really bright. I can't see. So I'm gonna move over here. But so just to give you an idea, there are three kinds of developers for the most part in the world. There are ones that say, hey, I don't believe in AI, I'm not gonna use it. That's a fair assessment. I mean, there was a report released last week where productivity levels actually went down amongst developers by 19%. Why? Because you can build code really fast, but when there's an issue, you gotta fix it. Who's gonna do it, right? You can't just do Claude code, make no mistakes, right? Like, it doesn't really work like that. So a human needs to go and debug it. And usually, I mean, debugging is a skill, but if you didn't write the code and didn't make it from scratch, it's a lot harder to do it. There needs to be some semblance of formatting, a standard in place, stuff like that. On the other extreme are the vibe coders. At Forward Security, we get a lot of engagements from people who are vibe coding. Let's just put it that way. Vincent, my lovely colleague in the back, he found a 0-day, but then also we find a lot of SQL injections, which you can talk to Vincent about that. He's the smart guy over here, not me. But yeah, so the full vibe coding level is another crazy extreme in my opinion, because you can create a minimum viable product, but you can't create a production level app in my opinion. In the middle, I think this is me. Vincent, maybe it's you, maybe it's a lot of other developers. You create your code and you use the autocomplete feature. So usually that's line by line. It could be function by function. Why is this important? You need to know what type of developers you're dealing with. Some of them are bought into AI. And great thing about AI is that it's democratized coding. But it's also introduced a lot of issues into production code bases that are good to think about. And you can think of, from a governance perspective, being like, okay, how can I help this person? How can I institute controls that can help this person? Stuff like that. So there's a lot where you can go from there, where even for myself, like autocomplete sometimes makes me slower because I need to still read it, make sure it's good. Okay, is it nice? Is it secure? Stuff like that. And vulnerabilities do hide in plain sight. And lastly, why is this another reason why this is important? I believe 38%, I don't remember the DBIR report at the top of my head, but I believe 30-something%, the #1 initial access vector for ransomware has actually become software exploitation. Second, I don't remember, because I'm old, I guess. And third is data exfiltration, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, shadow AI. All of that has something to do with governance and the institution of controls that you set in place. So something to think about, right? And ransomware, as we all know, education was the most recent breach. But what also happened in the last few months? Volleyball got breached. TELUS got breached. WestJet got breached over the summer. I think the summer had a lot of breaches, actually. I think Air Canada got breached. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening right now in the development world, and it's all like software access. So let's say you get lazy, okay? Unfortunately, developers blindly paste whatever Copilot gives them. I've actually done it myself, and it did not go well. Let's put it that way. So generally speaking, if you get lazy, you get AI slop. That's just the way it works. We all know that prompting is really important. But the thing is that when you prompt, it's an open loop. What does that mean, open loop? It means when you create, it can go anywhere. Like, you can put the same prompt 50 times, and you'll get different output, basically. It'll be similar, but it'll be different. You can actually close loop that. And there's a tool in place. We call it a harness. Now, what is a harness? A harness is something, you know, when you're climbing or whatever, it's meant to keep you secure, right? When you're climbing a mountain or whatever. So we call it harness engineering now. 2025 was the year of agentic engineering. And Canada has not moved so fast, but in the US has been moving extremely quickly on the agentic workflows. But this year, I feel will be a lot more about harnesses going forward. And so a harness, what is a harness? A harness is basically good software engineering fundamentals. But who's going to get that harness put into place initially? Who's going to get the buy-in? It's going to be the GRC people. It's going to be the people who are doing governance. Why? Because it's a security policy at the end of the day. And so productivity is really important. A harness will get you there in some ways because now you're closing the loop. You're putting deterministic rules in place that dictate what output your AI is giving you. So once again, you can ask me for resources. You can tell me. You can ask at the end. So this is actually a great example. I'm really glad I posted this. You can see at the end, the second last line, agent could not complete the action, but it'll still say, hey, this is great. It worked. But it actually didn't. So once again, like I was saying earlier, that AI will absolutely confidently lie to your face, okay? And that was kind of my demo. My demo was supposed to be like, I wanted to log into Hacker News, but anyways, it didn't work out. So now the fix was not actually a better prompt. Actually, system prompting, while it's really important, I never ever fix anything through the system prompt anymore. What is system prompting? There's something called prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is where you put, usually they do it in markdown style, so they put hashtag style guardrails, hashtag rules, hashtag communication style, whatever. And then they put a bunch of rules underneath that. Amazing, okay. But you can try and make that better, but actually the more you add to your prompt, the more tokens you're using. So with a harness, you're not even using any tokens. Someone asked me, I don't know if the person's in this room, someone asked me earlier, do you think Mythos is going to replace you? No, I don't think it's going to change my industry at all. First of all, because Opus is really good. Second of all, Mythos, the only real difference is that it shows you the attack chain. Guess who else can do that? A human, right? And you don't need to spend $20,000 to do it, right? Because that's what Mythos costs, right? So Cloudflare has a report on that, by the way. So feel free to look at that. But yeah, so basically, if you want deterministic output, if you want it to go in a certain direction, like right now, what's really popular is voice AI, for example. So a lot of real estate agents, for example, when they're calling clients doing outbound for sales, or a lot of hospitals, for example, they want to deal with, oh shit, okay, I got 1 minute, okay. So hospitals, for example, when they want to deal with like patients that are calling in, they're trying to use AI now to automate that, but good AI, let's say, not like the waiting 1 hour for TD Insurance or whatever for TELUS to get back to you for the customer support. So how can you make that output like the same? Or how do you make it good? A harness will be the future. I'm going to blast through these slides, by the way. Okay. Actually, this isn't even important. Moving on. Yeah, so AI generates baseline, but you have to build the trust. Feel free to use the AI to give you an idea and go from there. Understand that what you bring to the table is going to be your communication style and your ideas, your thought process, what you're bringing to the table. Embrace that. There's something really nice about diversity of communication that people don't appreciate enough, unfortunately. And at the end of the day, have fun, okay? Like, that's what we're all in it for. If you're having fun, other people will have fun, okay? And people want to be around that at the end of the day. And that will build your influence. Okay, how am I doing? Okay, like, are there any questions or anything that anybody wants to ask? Or no questions, okay, moving on. I'm so good at my job. No, I'm just kidding. Anything? Oh, no. OK.
What if the 7 dumps, when you're talking about the volleyball thing?
OK, so when you're talking about analogies and stuff like that, the reality is that, you know what's funny? That's a really good, it's a good analogy because what really happens is sometimes security people do try and take the development workflows into their own hands. It can work. I mean, if you're someone like me who did 7 years of engineering and I start doing that, probably, but you can't do it all. Like, we all want unicorns at our company that do multiple roles, but it's not. And unfortunately, that is becoming a trend, which I don't really like, where we thought AI was going to save us time. In reality, I actually just have way more to do in 8 hours a day. I don't know. That's a tough one. You know what? Going forward, I wonder if that's going to change our work culture a lot. Are we going to get let's say we work only 4 days a week rather than 5? That would be great, but I don't realistically think that's going to happen, for example. So sorry, I kind of took it tangentially, but there's actually a lot that I worry there that we just don't know what's going to happen, basically. Any other questions? Boo. OK, anyways, that's about it. The Verizon data breach investigative report, I highly recommend it. It's free. It'll tell you what are the most common things to think about when it comes to breaches. And there's nothing worse than a breach, OK? I've seen people lose their vision because of breaches. It's the worst day of your life. Cool. Cheers, guys.